Uh-huh.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Damn it. I was going to prepare to say the name. It's Dangerous Conversations.
Good job.
Right?
Good job.
Did I get it?
Look at that.
I got it this time.
Breath.
Dangerous Conversations.
Here we are.
It's natural now.
It just flows off the tongue.
Is this the fifth one? Or this is the fourth one?
Fourth one. Yeah,
Fourth one.
Number 4.
It's hard to keep track when you keep throwing them away and starting over. It's like the 18th one we've recorded.
Right. It's all right. Practice makes perfect.
Yes. So in the last podcast, I set up a cliffhanger. You
did, and everyone's waited with bated breath.
And before we get into that, I thought I'd stall.
Good.
So there's a big fire by my house.
I know. I texted you earlier, wanted to make sure that you guys were not having to evacuate.
Yes, we're not in the evacuation, and the evacuation is heading east and south of us. It was 10,000 acres on fire, 1% contained as of this morning. Yeah,
well, that's the other thing too, is it spreads so fast that you may think that you're far away one moment, and then 30 minutes later it's right at your front door. So
yeah, we're at least 10 miles away.
Well, I hope they get it contained soon.
Yeah. Well, it won't be contained soon. Yeah. I just assume that it's just going to keep burning out into where there's almost no defensible spaces, no cities, just houses out there. It's the Wild West out there within the direction it's heading, and off towards Mexico, where there's not cities or really any roadways to get fire trucks. Big freeway, you can have a fire truck standing there and you can actually try to stop it. But if it's just nothing for 50 miles, then
it's surprising people kind of think that California is like LA, where it's just all city, but there's tons of just forest area and unpopulated spots all over. You
get your big cities, and then you've got hundreds of miles of desert or forest or what have you in the middle. Yep. So it's
all
not
super dry and ready to light up right now.
So that's it. That's the boring story about that. I got a link from my sister that 924 Gilman Street was shutting down.
Oh, really? Oh, man, that sucks.
And then I clicked on the link. Let me see if
can you share it?
I don't think I can. Oh, I could share the screen, although I'm not recording this, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
That's the other thing I found, is that I pay too much attention looking at the screen, and this is too much of a video podcast if I rely on the video.
Yeah.
And then I'm talking about stuff that people who are listening don't have a clue.
God damn it.
God damn it.
Way to reference visual cues that no one can see.
Yes. So I'm not going to do that, but I will. It's more of an audio thing than anything.
Okay.
Let's see if we can hear it. Yeah, I can't hear it. Sorry. There it goes.
I'm never gonna. Did they rickroll you?
Yeah, there's this thing going around where people put fake headlines in.
Wow.
And then it goes off
people
to
still doing that. Eh?
Yeah, it goes off to this web page.
Is it the YouTube video or?
It's the YouTube video, but all the YouTube controls are disabled. It's just
nice.
It's just.
I'm sure, I'd say 99% of the views that video has are all just being recorded.
Which is funny because I commented before I clicked on the link, because the title itself was very apparent. 925, which is not even the right address, but 925 Gilman closing its doors after 34 years. Like, yeah, okay. Why am I going to have a hard time believing that? I'm like, oh no, that can't be true. A music venue shuttering its doors
at this day and age,
that's very possible for any number of reasons, COVID or music industry or anything. So So that's it. That's the good news is that I looked at their Facebook page and they say that no, it's a rickroll. We're not going anywhere. So.
Oh, good. That's good.
Yes. Have you played there?
It's like one of the places in the Bay Area that I had not played, but because it was always usually in more, I guess, heavier rock and roll bands instead of straight punk. So we probably wouldn't have been welcome there.
I played there. I got jacked up.
Jacked up?
Yeah, so there's a mosh pit going on, and I was standing, because my band was going to play next, and I was standing against the back wall by the door, just like emanating the "don't mess with me, I've got to play. I'm not here to get my wrist broken, please."
Right.
And this 4'8" punker girl comes in through the door and paps her elbow. So it swings it violently into my ear. While I'm sitting there leaning, it's like, "Oh, here we go!" And there's a chap right there. Pow!
Smash.
Like, sweet. That's what I wanted 10 minutes before I play drums.
You can't hear out of the ear.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Why did you think I was back against the wall? Because I wanted my ass beat? So,
clearly.
Now I know you can't even be in the room,
right,
without having the kick my ass sign on.
Dude, you should have been backstage, man.
Yeah.
I never even played there. Is there backstage in that venue?
I don't remember. It's probably something.
I've played, what was it, just down the street over at the Berkeley Square. That's what it was.
Okay.
Yeah, which is a small little spot.
Yeah.
And they had a regular sized dressing room. I remember playing at the Stone one time, and we had to get dressed in the kitchen because they had booked so many bands that there wasn't room. So we played with LA Guns, and LA Guns had the whole, all the dressing rooms were full with them guys. So
yeah, they all need 2 dressing rooms, right?
Right. One to do drugs,
one for the coke, and one for the food.
Right, one for the hookers, and one for the blow. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, you can't put them in the same room.
Right. You don't want to accidentally.
Then the hookers are just going to be asleep, and that's not what not what they're there for.
Right.
The singer from the Donnas was at our show, and we.
Really?
She took us. We went out to dinner. I got to introduce my sister, which was quite fun, and then we partied in San Francisco with the singer for the Donnas. So that was a proper evening.
Nice.
Yes.
Very cool.
All right.
Am
I out of stalling? It's okay. I've got a very long speech prepared.
Where's your drum roll, man? You need a drum roll.
I got this.
Oh man. Maybe we'll turn this into a segment where Nick's big news or something like that.
I was looking for Jordan Peterson quotes because I need a Jordan Peterson sound effect every time we invoke Jordan.
Yeah.
There's one I got right now. The winner. This lady was like, "What do you have to say about all these neo-Nazis out here at your thing?" He's like, "What? What do you have to say about all of that?" "I don't like Nazis." So right now, the winning Jordan Peterson quote is, "I don't like Nazis."
I don't like Nazis. There you go. So you gotta get that in your queue, man.
Yes, I'll work on it for next time. I was listening to bunch of Jordan Peterson clips for a few weeks now, and I was camping and setting up the trailer and listening to a discussion between Jordan Peterson and Russell Brand.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
Apparently,
I think 2 of them.
Yeah, they do it a few times, and it's funny. I mean, part of it is I see Russell's clearly left leaning.
Yeah,
and thinking, okay, well, Jordan's. It's hard to say he's not right. He's kind of defined by his enemies.
Yeah, he says that he's more left side, thinking, but he tends to get lumped in with the right side.
Yeah, like there was I was listening through clips of his comebacks to try and get just that right zinger, the audio zinger, and someone was asking him about, white privilege and racial equality. And his basic point was, how far is too far?
Yeah.
Like, let's say I do have white privilege and it is responsible for some percentage of my success. What's the specifics? What's the plan? What's too far? Because everyone can agree the left can take it too far. What's too far? Before I go down this path, I want to know what too far is. And obviously it's very easy to, well, then you're just on the right.
Yeah.
Like, well, no. Because he was like, I want the moderate left to have their say. I want them to have their freedom. I want the rise of the left to come as they know what's too far, and we try to be reasonable about it. And I thought that was a great way to put it, because it does seem like the inmates are running the asylum at this point.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the clips that I've seen, he basically says that it's not really that there's white privilege, is that there's a majority privilege, and because whites are the majority, that's kind of how the correlation happens.
Yeah. Here in America, and obviously other places, but in Japan, there's majority privilege for sure.
Right. Yeah, and that's I think was his point, where it all really depends on where you are. It's the majority and not necessarily race based. Yeah. But there's that's a big can of worms, but that was his point.
Yeah, and that how do we talk about it? We need to talk about it without the crazies defining the language, defining how far, we have to go. It's like, no, let's figure this out. We're still in the figuring it out stage.
Yeah. I think that's what I enjoyed about that conversation between Russell Brand and Jordan Peterson, is that Russell Brand, even though he's kind of left leaning, is that he still gave him the opportunity to explain things, and he didn't just kind of shut him down and say, no, you're full of hate and you're just not, you're not allowed to have this conversation because if you disagree with me, then that just means you're an evil Nazi, So
yeah, Jordan does seem to be prepared, I think, for every opportunity I've seen, or every instance where someone puts him in a box. If they let him respond, he can pull his way right back out of that box.
Yeah, I thought it was a great example of it. A way to have that conversation between two opposing ideas and still be able to carry on that conversation and learn something from the experience. So I give a lot of credit to Russell Brand for that.
The journey I was on, and this goes back years and years and years, the wondering what's the difference between the left and the right. Mm-hmm. I don't know, we've talked about that. Everyone bad is on the right. Hitler and his socialist party is the right, and no menacing person's ever referred to as the left. No horrifying whatever. And going, okay, well, it's just the politicalization. Got it.
Yeah.
The hyper-politicization of the dialogue, and going, okay, well, do these words even mean anything anymore? What did they mean?
Yeah.
And along the way, I think Jordan helped me understand in this conversation he had with Russell Brand, and I may put in a link to the conversation. I was talking with a couple of friends about it, and I'm like, this podcast really shook my foundations, and it's just because it happened in the right order with all the other things going on in my life, so anyone could listen to this conversation and kind of get anything out of it. Mm-hmm. But they were talking about helping the poor, and what's the government role, what's society's role in doing that. And Jordan said that the left tends to have terrible ideas and the right doesn't care.
Right.
And
it's, the right says pull yourself up by your bootstraps, and the left is, equal outcome for everyone.
Yeah, we'll take care of it. And it's funny because Jordan talks about the social contract and the idea that we do as a society owe each other certain things. Like I first heard that term President Obama was talking about, like the roads. If you got a company and that company was successful, you didn't do that yourself.
Right.
There's roads that got people to your company, and you owe something.
Yeah, all our ancestors that came before us, they've done all the work to kind of get our society where it is. We all owe them a debt of gratitude.
Yeah. And even then, if you take, okay, the idea of the social contract, depending on who's saying it, if someone, who runs the government's, if their point in invoking it is, you need to give us our due. You need to, we need to be in charge of more. You need to give us more taxes or whatever like that. When Jordan Peterson talks about it, he's back to the individual, which is what I love about him, is he's focusing on the empowerment of the person. What's my responsibility? And, in terms of the poor, helping the poor, taxes isn't a virtue. Saying someone should do something isn't a virtue. It's what are you doing that's the virtue. And when he's the first one who talked about the social contract in a way that I was ready to own it. Whereas before, when I heard it, it was just an excuse for people to, be promoting whatever it is they've been promoting their whole lives anyway. So
what hit you so hard that was kind of like the aha moment that really kind of sunk it in for you?
Yeah, it was, well, the truth of that statement of the left having, wanting to help but doing things that are the opposite of the help, putting their fingers on the scale of justice and swinging justice the wrong way, or...
Yeah, like their intentions are good. They want everyone to be happy in this utopian, society, which I think to a certain degree we all want. Everyone wants to be happy, and everyone wants to be successful and have everything they want. Yeah. But it's kind of like, like bloodletting in the 1700s, where people thought that's how you cured someone, was to get rid of the bad blood,
And that's it. Yeah, it's that. Well, how do you get the results?
Yeah.
And it seems like, okay, well, results are secondary to my attempt, or what my end goal is. And if my end goal is right, then I should keep working on it, maybe keep dabbling or keep trying it. But, if we go, hey, 50 years of complete failure, maybe I'm fundamentally after the wrong thing.
Yeah. And that's the danger, is that if you, don't allow someone to challenge your ideas, in a constructive way, and allow them to criticize it, then you're not going to be able to grow and benefit from, perhaps seeing a different point of view and getting ultimately what you want at the end. But instead, if you just automatically have this knee-jerk reaction to saying, if you disagree with me, that means you're evil, and you just don't, want good things for people, that kind of puts you in a box, and then you don't realize is that over time things are going to end up not the way you want them, and it doesn't benefit society at all. So,
yeah. And then his point on the people on the right who, exactly what you said, that, so personal responsibility, pull yourself up by the bootstraps, that money goes to those who deserve it. He's like, that's not completely wrong, but it's not true for the reasons the people on the right think it's true. And they're, it's not, they're not doing what they should do. And so it was just the culmination of hearing it put that way really drove home the idea that I'm not either one, and that society should not be all one or all of the other. That we need both halves. We need the people who, we all need to focus on ourselves. Ultimately, we're responsible to ourselves to be the best people we can be. But some people aren't ready for that. And you can't, what's the hierarchy? If you're fighting for food, you're not thinking about self-actualization. Right. So
right. Maslow's higher needs. Yeah.
You can't get there on your own. Someone's got to show you the right way and help you get on the path far enough so that you can take the rest of the journey.
So how did this information change you? Did you make any, I guess, do you have any thoughts about how you're going to change your behavior or reinforce the behavior or something like that?
So I've always had the party identification part of me, the which team am I rooting for?
Right.
And, I know I always look for ideas. Shouldn't say always. The last couple of years, I've tried to focus on ideas and not on the party. But even then, there's been a soft spot in my heart for the party, and an automatic hard spot for the other party.
It's kind of knee-jerk reaction.
Yeah, knee-jerk reaction. And, that's never going to go away.
Yeah.
But really seeing it for what it is, that the party is not, that neither party is really here to help solve the problems I'm trying to solve. That both parties are there to help the party thrive, the party to get power, control, money, influence. And that not only the party, but the underlying nature of why we've split into the two sides that we have. And this is back to what's the difference between the left and the right. Mm-hmm. And I can't remember if this conversation was one of the podcasts we deleted or not, but the idea, again, Jordan Peterson said, was that the left, progressive, the idea is creative people trying new things to make things better. And there's nothing, wrong with that. And utopia, I guess it's a fine dream, but you can't act like you're not doing a good job if there's not a utopia, because you're never going to get rid of all the problems. But one side's, the idea is we should be trying new things, dangerous new things even, to try and make things better. And the other side is, hey, we've got a good thing going here. We need to keep grounded. And the proper balance is to take both of those into consideration, and don't always make sure you understand what works, and don't throw everything out. Mm-hmm. The fear, with anarchy, is that things can be a lot worse than they are right now. So make goddamn sure you know what you're trying to get rid of. Like if you're trying to get rid of the cops and now the murder rate's up 600%, maybe that's not the approach. That's hopefully not the end game you were hoping for. So understand what works and what doesn't work. Yeah. Try new things, but be aware, and that's the two opposing sides that force us into these groups, and it's so artificial for me to think I'm one or the other. Needless. So
you're a centrist, is what you're trying to say?
Fuck. Again, I hate centrist.
Agnostic.
Because, it's back to agnostic. What's your favorite horse, Nick? Brown.
Yeah.
What's your favorite party? I don't know. I'm in the middle. But it's the trying to transcend the political system, the labels, the groups. And it does ultimately come back to just, what's the ideas.
I mean, I'm always curious kind of how we ended up with this two-party system to begin with. I mean, I kind of felt like it was this idea that we're Americans and that we have all these common interests and these common goals, and we all want to, basically what the Constitution says in the Declaration of Independence, like this idea of just working together and trying to make this a better place for everyone, and bring us you're hungry, you're tired, and you're poor, and create opportunity for anyone who's here, so that we're all equal. And then how that got split into two different parties. I guess I've got to do some homework in my history, but I just don't see why we're so polarized now. I guess that's the thing, is that once you pick a side, then it seems like it's the Hatfield and McCoys for the rest of eternity,
I blame. So, the first part of that, and granted, this is just one man's opinion. Mm-hmm. The reason why there's only two parties and not like 5 or 6 viable parties is, if you start spreading the decent people out over 5 groups, and you have one completely cracked out, hateful, or just completely, maybe the earth is flat, or, anything, you can have 8%
as far as being able to vote for them.
Yeah, you can have 8% of the population who can align their power base and then compete. If everyone else goes into an 8% group, you got your Protestants and your Christians and your Catholics, and if you divide this pretty much the exact same religion up into 9 different groups that really hate each other because they're focusing on the little bit, then they're all become equal with the...
I understand why we couldn't have a grudge match kind of thing. Like, in almost any competition, you've got, a field of people that are competing to get to the finish line. Why do we have to have a party system when let's say there's 16 candidates for president, let's say, regardless of their political party? It's just a grudge match, first round, you got to make it past that. And it's kind of almost like, the Survivor version of the president,
And that's part of what sucks. I guess people can debate over which party has the most control over the candidates, but
I think that would be a great idea. You know how much more people would be involved in politics if they turned the bread. It's getting there already. It's getting closer and closer. It's like Survivor version of the presidency. I think people would be, well, I guess maybe that's why things are so lit up the way they are, is that it's kind of like that already. But now we've got these, red team, blue team thing.
Yeah. I showed you that meme someone did, the idea that the candidates, you don't know their names, their voices are disguised, you don't see their pictures, there's just debates and platforms and ideas.
Mm-hmm.
And candidate A and candidate B, you don't know gender, race, any of that. Just their ideas. And then everyone votes candidate A, candidate B.
Yeah.
The winner's elected, and then they come out for the acceptance speech, and then you find out who won. Yeah, no.
President at first sight. Yeah, it's tough though, because as human beings, we make so many judgments based on visual cues and all the rest of the stuff that comes along with just seeing someone in person.
Well, there's the shorthand, a very easy, very lazy way for me to know if I should vote for someone is if they say what party it is, and that's the epiphany you were asking me before. What's going to change about me after what I've learned, and it's that knowing what party someone is meaningless information. That there's good people on both sides, there's bad people on both sides, there's people who are in it to help, to be a servant at the top, and then there's people who are there to have a power kick or, more nefarious reasons to be an elected official. Yeah. I do like the idea of making $100,000 a year for the rest of my life. That'd be fun.
Yeah, that's not a bad deal.
I'll take that. So,
well, unless you're used to several $1 million a year, then it's like a pay cut.
Oh well, yeah. Well, you keep making that. I think. Well, that's one thing I've learned. If you're already making millions, as long as you're not president. If you're president, then you kind of have to divest your interests. But most senators and congresspersons are
still on the
insane multimillionaires who are still making crazy money, and
that's a whole other topic.
That's a whole different topic, which I'm fine for that too. Sign me up.
Yeah, right.
So, this all leads into a story.
Story time.
Yes.
There you go.
My cousin, she had a bottle of wine the other night, and then she posted on Facebook about Civil War and martial law and things like that, and people have been wondering about that, for years now. Are we on the path to Civil War? Was it the 4th of July 2 years ago when people had Facebook posts like, "I'm safe from the Civil War"? It's like, oh, okay. That's kind of dramatic. Maybe that was 3 years ago.
I don't remember.
So
yeah, I don't know, man. It's something I've been kind of contemplating lately, is that at the end of or end of fall. I guess it's not the end of fall. Come November, what are the scenarios that are going to happen if Trump wins? What's going to happen if Biden wins? What's going to happen? And I don't know. I feel like if Trump wins, there's going to be. I feel like there's going to be a lot of this backlash. I think there's going to be a pretty big response to that. If Biden wins, what does that mean then? There's consequences for that too. I don't know how that's going to play out.
I've got a book on a series of books by Shelby Booth on the Civil War.
Oh yeah,
that I'm making my way through.
Nice.
That's a lot of fun trying to understand, since we've only had really the one.
Mm-hmm.
What was it that caused it? What does it take for something like that to happen? And are we on that path? And are there other paths? Obviously, there's not only one path, and it won't be the exact same cause because obviously slavery is not a thing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's at the time, though, it was. Imagine if there was an industry that we said, okay, I'm sorry, you can't do it anymore. I mean, let's say the way that people looked at it was, let's say if we said, hey, I'm sorry, you can't use coal and oil or any kind of petroleum products.
Yeah.
We just took that off the table and said, no, we're going to have to, because of global warming, we need to stop using these, period.
Yeah.
And I think that was the level of I guess, discord then. I don't think that what's going on right now is quite the same, because it's more of a social thing and not directly tied to economic. So I think, it's an argument, but I don't think it's like, okay, well, that means if we go forward that you can't have your livelihood and your way of life. I think that's something that would put us in a civil war.
I really like that example you just gave. The idea of shutting down an industry that would end someone's way of life.
Yeah,
that's
how they look
exactly,
at it. Yeah, unfortunately,
what caused the Civil War.
Yeah,
and there's nothing like that going on. There's a lot of unrest. There's this video going around, making the rounds now. Apparently, the protesters up in Portland threw a firebomb at the cops, and it blew up on one of the protesters' feet, and he's dancing around with the shoes on fire.
I saw that. Yeah, I'm like, how did that happen? Because it shows that it was a fireball, and then I think that he ran through it. Is what I heard. Why would
he
you
either
do
ran,
that?
and and I don't know.
It ought to be the laugh, but I mean, it's like it.
Yeah, well, I mean, he just
gasoline
took
on fire.
He took his shoes off, so it's not like he's died or anything.
He's probably got some burns, but
and all the footage starts. I heard that they threw it towards the cops, and it didn't get that far, and it landed.
Maybe he tried to kick it forward or something.
Or whatever it is. He either hit him, landed near him, or he saw it and ran through it.
Yeah.
There's a video I saw where it looks like he's dancing his way out of it, but from a different angle. You can clearly see he's shaking his feet. He's not dancing. Yeah. He's trying to put his fire out. Yeah, and it gets bad real quick. But the general point is there's a lot of people who are unhappy, but to start a civil war, you got to know who your enemy is. Mm-hmm. And it's like, there's not a party of racial inequality. You can say that, and there's a lot of marketing for that, but it's like, what are the ideas that, like, if you say,
well, I think people would say
violent,
that it's pretty much going to be Democrat. I mean, that's I think that's, I would be shocked to find out if there were social justice warriors that were Republican. I think.
Oh no, and I get that.
Yeah.
But that's why I think all of this goes away in November. I think this is...
If what? If
nothing. I don't think this is... I think this is just entirely... And I'm not going to say 100% of it, but I think the vast majority of what we're seeing out there, everything from the response to COVID to protesters hitting people with rocks and burning down stores. I think it's all meant to affect the outcome of the election. And once the election's over, obviously, half the country is going to be unhappy with the end results. Yeah. But within a week of the election, most people are going to say, well, there's nothing for me to affect by being out here doing this. There'll still be some staunch people. I could be very wrong about it, but I definitely think the main goal for people calling to action right now is to influence the election.
And you mean influence it so that the Democrats win?
Depending on what they're trying to do. Yeah, like you just said, most of the rioters, certainly in Portland and places like that, are probably Democrats and want the sense that Trump is the one who's, I see news stories. The mayor of Portland blames Trump for all the problems and just quotes that Trump's pouring gasoline on the fire and there's,
Well, even Biden says that too.
Yeah. Every 4 years, the people get to vote. And I think all of this is made to maximize that outcome. Whatever side you're on, you're tempted to go, what can I do that would bring more people in the middle over to my side? And I think once the voting's done, people can go, okay, well, there's nothing really for me to do here. That's my guess.
Well, I guess in a way, I hope you're right because, it sucks that it's still a couple months away.
Yeah.
And we'll have to kind of deal with the unrest that there is. But if after that 2 months is up, if it all kind of dissipates, then that's probably a good thing. I think also, having a COVID, vaccine will probably have something to do with that because then people can start in employment will hopefully start going away. But if Trump wins, I don't know. I don't know. I'm apprehensive. I have a twinge of that. I would not be shocked or surprised if things went south with the people that are rioting currently. I feel, if Trump wins, I think there's a possibility it could get worse.
Yeah, for sure. There's definitely going to be a percentage of people who will see that as, it's like, I've been mongering in fear, the worst fear for 4 years, and you people still don't get it. What do I have to do to make you people understand what I can so plainly see?
Yeah. I mean, my worst fear, or I guess not necessarily a fear of mine, but I guess I fear it in a sense is that it could cause some confusion in our government is that some left-wing person who's kind of had enough, tries to assassinate Trump,
Yeah. I'm sure he doesn't have that in mind. Trump?
No, I'm sure he thinks that, he's unstoppable and that he's King Trump.
I think, I wonder what happened if the Secret Service comes to him. It's like, there's actually 500 people that we're tracking right now who are currently trying to figure out how to get to you. And there's probably 10 times that many we don't know about.
Right, yeah.
I wonder what that might do to him. Like, it's been fun while it lasted, but...
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. It's, maybe that's the worst case scenario, a nightmare scenario.
But then I wonder, God, Pence is president. Whew.
Well,
that's not what I signed up for either.
Yeah, but I was relatively, I don't know if I was saying impressed, but I was like, okay, I wasn't as disappointed as I expected I was going to be with the way that he handled the at least the press conferences. I don't know how effectual he was with kind of managing the whole COVID team, but at least I wasn't like, oh my God, he can't even, face the public and that kind of thing. But
yeah, Like there's something I wonder, because there's a lot of people who are like, oh well, he's against homosexuality, and not just in belief, but practices against it, or in his rulings, or his legislation, or what he tries to do. And the only thing, like there was a speech, or there was some legislation he was doing in the end of the 80s when they're trying to figure out the government's response to HIV and AIDS. And he gave a speech saying, well, we only want to give money to organizations that are results, that change in behaviors. And someone's like, well, yeah, of course. He didn't say stop them from being gay. It was just do safe sex. Don't just keep doing the same thing. Here's a little bit of money. If you've got a dangerous lifestyle.
Right.
The whole thing, my whole life growing up on MTV, it was all about condoms and safe sex and stuff. And that's what he was saying. It's like, you got to change the risky behaviors. Don't just throw money down a hole.
Right. Yeah. He didn't say
yeah, only give money to people who will change your orientation. He just.
Right.
So, and this is, again, why it all sucks, because we don't have people from two different sides who know about it, talking about it, and then saying, did he really say? I've got one side saying one thing and the other side saying the other thing. And then I go look, all right, well, where is this anti-homosexual speech or legislation or what? Because there's a ton of stodgy Republicans who are anti-homosexual. Yeah. So I want to give every piece of shit his due, if he's earned it. But then I also know
that's the American way. Is that everyone has a right to free speech and allow them to be able to kind of say what they think, and then at the other end is to be able to rebuttal to that and give each man enough rope to hang himself with, so to speak. And I think that's a big problem that we have nowadays, is that people are very, they kind of hear what they want to hear. If the language is not something that people are misunderstanding things very easily. And if they hear anything that makes them think that they're anti their group, they just immediately run with it, whether or not they've actually heard it with the intention that it's meant for. If that makes sense.
That's what the conversation I was engaged with my cousin on the Civil War or whatever coming up. And I'm like, there's nothing going on worth fighting for. Sure, the militia's coming. And that's specifically, and that's that look you just had, She's like, what about equality, fucker? I'm like, equality is a great thing to fight and die for. But who are you fighting? Who is the person who says, no, we don't need equality here?
I think what you meant to say, if I can then kind of reinterpret what you're saying, is that it's definitely worth fighting for, but I don't think we're in a situation where we need to fight for it. I think there's ways to I guess, make changes in our government and in our social, awareness that can help solve these problems. They're not at a place where we're not at, we need to take up arms over the situation. It's not that bad.
Yeah. I still don't know what the changes are that people, if you don't have, here's back to the example you gave, what was so good. I have a job, I have a farm, and I need my equipment to work. And someone says, you can't use your tractors anymore. You can't use your machinery anymore. Would I go to war with someone like that? That's for someone to decide. But I have a clear enemy who's clearly out to do something to destroy my way of life.
Yeah.
If you say, I wish there was more equality, everyone's like, me too.
Yeah.
Really, I do.
That's always going to be the case.
Okay, well... But I'm going to kill you. Like, well, why are you going to kill me? It's like, well, you're not doing enough. I'm like, okay, well, what's your idea? Well, my idea is to kill you. And that was my point. Equality is a fine thing to die for or to kill for if you know what success is, what's holding you back, and you find someone that's holding it back. Yeah. And you can deduce somehow that getting rid of them will bring equality,
right?
Then all of this is a fine. That was my point. And that's what I told her. I'm like, this is an impossible conversation to have on social media.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we're living in like Jim Crow law kind of times where there's. I mean, I'm not going to say that there couldn't be improvements made in the way that we police our society.
Yeah.
Definitely, and that's not like we need to defund them. I think we need to give them more funds so that they can have better training and more education. I think that's, and again, kind of making sure that you weed out people that, probably shouldn't be policemen to begin with. I would definitely support that. But I don't think things are so bad that, like you said, I don't think we're ready to take up arms and start a civil war over the way that our society is run currently.
Yeah.
It definitely needs, and I guess that's part of having an open society is that there's always going to be struggle. There's always going to be problems that we need to address. I don't think we need to, make every little thing. And that's why, I used the whole Hatfields and McCoy idea is that it was always like, well, you hurt my brother. That means I got to hurt you now, instead of, coming to the table and having a, more civilized exchange of how to solve problems,
Yeah. That's the part I'm trying to attain is the forget whether I'm a Hatfield or a McCoy. Realize that well, I shouldn't say it doesn't get you anything. There's a ton of benefits to being part of a fraternity like that.
Yeah.
And in terms of if my only job is to donate money and vote, it makes it easier if I just need to know if it's a D or an R.
Right.
But that's me shirking my responsibility to actually make the world a better place by actually demanding real improvements and holding people accountable for the results of their actions. That's a lot of work and just...
it is. And that's the thing. I think that's what I don't think that the forefathers kind of anticipated is that they were thinking that, well, this is the most important thing to your society is how it's governed. And that means you've got to participate. You've got to be, you've got to do the work.
Yeah.
And I think that we're so far removed now, at a basics, I guess civilians level is that we're so distracted with everything else that's going on in life and trying to make ends meet that we're not as involved and we're not doing our due diligence to make sure that we're being a part of the way that we're governed and participating in that whole conversation, because it takes a lot of time. It's not something that you can just, say, well, okay, I'll spend 5 minutes here and make a decision. It's a big responsibility. And I think that we've got to find some way to be able to make it more accessible for people to participate in a way that's meaningful instead of making these, as a D or an R kind of situation.
Yeah. Yeah, no, there's so much work. Yeah, just the idea that I voted the right way.
Right.
Therefore,
did my job. I put my check next to the guy with
I've
the
unleashed the winning team to go solve the problem. Is probably that's what we all think. Yeah. If I give my team what they need to go do the right thing, then they'll go do the right thing. My job's to vote them in, and then their job's to go do whatever it is, and then magical rainbows will fall from the sky.
I think that's why we have what we have, and the way that people run for office is, they pander to try and get people to say, okay, trust me, I've got your back. I'm going to give you what you want as far as the way that we run the government. You don't have to do the hard work of your homework and make sure that things are getting handled the way that you'd like them to be handled. Just vote for me and I'll take care of that. You don't need to, go do your thing, go watch your Netflix and play your video games and leave the adult talk to me.
Yeah. Which is funny because, in the beginning of the country, only property owners and, quote, people with skin in the game could vote. And, now we've got Judge Judy out there begging everyone, please just go in and vote. That's all you got to do is just vote. Yeah. Please. And that's, God, I hate uninformed voters.
Yeah.
That's part of the reason. Social media is the other big part of the reason why we can't have nice things, because it's so easy for us to only hear the side of the story we want to hear and have this robust ecosystem of millions of people who only see what we see.
Yeah.
And then nothing else breaking through that normalizes us.
It's, I think it's too easy nowadays to just, is it the red pill or the blue pill? I'm sorry, the blue pill is the one that you just kind of put me back in the matrix and I'll pretend like we never had this. Yeah. It's very effective to that the way that our lives are conducted now is that you can get distracted with so many things, via technology, whatever, that it doesn't leave room for anything else. And it's whether it was by design or by accident, it's working out in the favor of the people that actually want to take power have an easier time of it now, because people are so distracted with, having to try and make ends meet, or with the entertainment of any kind. It's just so easy to get lulled to sleep with everything that's going on. Too easy, way too easy.
And I come back to going, okay, well, what's the difference? This is back to the beginning of the conversation. What's the difference between the two parties, or the two ideologies? One of them wants to try new things, and one of them wants to hold on to the magic that got us here. Mm-hmm. And issue by issue, you can go through, okay, some of these issues really need a lot of change. How we treat homosexuals over the last few decades really needed a lot of improvement, really needed a lot of change, and we're not done yet. But then I look at something like college education, where I feel like we've done a lot of changing in the last few decades, and I don't feel like the people who are coming out of college are way more prepared for life after college than, say, someone 40 years ago. So
absolutely, yeah.
I think we're
they're not learning how to learn; they're just learning how to parrot.
Yeah, we're failing. So, change for the sake of change is not good. So that, you just have to go through issue by issue and go, okay, is it more right as it is? Or do we have drastic things, do we got to burn the whole thing down and start over again? Sometimes yes, sometimes no.
Well, that's what Jefferson says, right? I mean, that's, to me, it's the thing that, people on the left are, the two parties, the left being Democrat, people want things regulated by the government and put the responsibility on the government, saying, okay, it's your job to kind of help make things be fair and keep everything regulated so that we have this kind of equal opportunity, equal outcome kind of thing. And the right, it's like, no, I feel like we should all be able to make our own decisions about how we conduct ourselves, and we don't need a lot of government influence or involvement. We need a government to have certain things run correctly, like our armies and our military and things like that. Collect taxes and what have you, but the rest of it is, I can take care of myself. I don't need to have the government, regulate my life, because I'm not willing to take on the responsibility, or I don't feel, that I'm willing or able to do that. I think it's to me on the right side, that's kind of their side. So
I think a big part of it too is the idea that I'm not able to handle my responsibility because I could be shady or whatever, selfish, pull too much power to myself or whatever. So the solution to that is to take a different person and have him be in charge of everything. And I know people on the right go, well, wait a minute. If I can't be trusted with my own life, why can this cocksucker be trusted with everyone's life? He's the same kind of animal I am. What makes him so special? Which is part of the thing. Who are these angels that are supposed to be above the thing that make it so we can't do it ourselves?
I've always looked at it like, ideally in my little world in my head is that we elect these people that we feel have our best interests in mind, and will make decisions concerning government policy and things like that we don't necessarily want to spend our day doing. Kind of like, I specialize in doing what I do.
Yeah.
You specialize in what you do. That specialize in managing the government and keeping that part of it running. But I want it to be as little as it needs to be and no more. Because I'm an adult, I can make decisions on my own. But I do want to have, in case someone decides they want to try and take something from me, I want to have a government where I've got, the fire department or I've got, police department to, protect my property and life. So those things are important, but I don't, need someone telling me whether or not I can choose to, take pain medicine or not. So, something like that.
I think, it comes to transparency. What's the government doing? And I want the government to be doing more than just getting out of my way. At the very least, like you said, fire department, obviously national border protection, keep Hitler out, things like that. Safety nets, things like that. But there should be, and this is the part where we're, as the people are falling down, we need to be more engaged with what's being done. What's the goal? Are they meeting the goal? Not that I know how to solve the problem. I don't know how to balance the budget. I don't know how to invest properly for a nation. But if someone said, hey, this is our goal and this is the results for the last year, and you look at it year over year and you go, hey, are you
better off or worse off? Yeah.
And then, because everyone spins it, every president gives their State of the Union speech and sucks their own dick over how perfect everything is.
Look how great I am. Yeah.
Yeah. So that part of it aside, it's what are the results? And I don't necessarily know how to get better results, but you're not getting good results, and I'm going to hold you accountable, and you either get new results or I'm going to vote someone in.
Yeah.
That level of thinking doesn't exist because you just got the incumbent, and if you're voting for your local Democrat and they're doing a shit job, the only thing that really matters to you is that the Republican doesn't win. And that's why we can't have nice things.
Right.
Because we're back to the Hatfields and McCoys. And that's why we can't have nice things. Because if we're a Hatfield, we got to keep those Hatfields, even if nephew Jessup is doing a shit job, you don't want a McCoy in there.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And there's a lot of that, unfortunately.
Yeah. I just had an earth-shattering epiphany that I shouldn't be that way. And everyone obviously knows they shouldn't be that way, but this is like some kind of thing where I'm like, oh my God, I actually really am this way. And most people never get there.
I think humans it's just human nature. We want to be around people that we feel that we understand and that we feel comfortable around. And that's, I think, what causes a lot of the problems we have is that it's fear-based, that we don't know, a lot of what people fear is what they see in the media, whether it's, through movies or the news, and they keep pumping it. They keep, because it gets, people's attention, because it gets clicks or whatever.
Yep.
And sensationalized, but that and the narrative ends up being what people believe, and they're reinforced because they're too afraid to actually, find out for themselves. And unfortunately, that's just human nature. But I think that the lesson to be learned is that we've got to fight against human nature and learn how to, and again, that comes from education, is it, learning how to not just be, a xenophobe and not fear any change that you may not understand. Is the best way to combat that fear is to educate yourself and learn more, and not be, knee jerk is to just, dismiss it because you're afraid. And I see a lot. It's like COVID is a perfect example of how people, you can learn a lot about how people, their philosophy on the way that they deal with the whole thing.
You brought up something. I'm just going to share my thoughts. I want to hear your thoughts. As I work through one of the main differentiators between the extreme left and right, when you look at Hitler and Stalin, who largely, if you just look at at a high level, they both did kind of the same thing on different scales. But okay, one of them, I now get it. One of them was the right, and one of them was the left. And it seems that the right, when you take someone like Hitler, they find the enemy out there. And in the case of, he was German, they came out of, just decimated in World War I. Everyone was poor. The credit was shit. Everything, they were the butts of the joke. They were the shithole of Europe.
Yeah.
And then this charismatic leader came and gave everyone a common outside enemy, and gave them a reason to come together. And he basically is like, here's the problem out there. And sure, there were Jews inside Germany, so that there were, they did have to purge.
And they were, yeah.
Yeah. But it was the outsiders. They're not of us. Sure, they've infiltrated us, but there's us and then there's them.
Yeah.
And that's the right. The xenophobia is what got me thinking of this, the fear of the outsider.
Yeah.
And what the left does is divide us into, what's most important is that I understand my exact tiny little group, so that everyone, all my fellow countrymen, all my brothers and sisters, it's still all us and them. We divide and attack ourselves from within.
Yeah.
And that's how, Russia destroyed itself, that Pol Pot and all these leftist murder farms did was they got people looking, race or financial. Oh, if you got class, if you're in a different class than me, even though you're my countryman, you're my enemy, and I get to kill you because I want what you have.
Yeah, it's tribalism, man.
Yeah. And what you still end up with is us against them. It's just, where did the them start from? Were they outsiders, or were they your next door neighbors, and you just focused on a way to turn them into outsiders? But
yeah,
that's I'm trying to figure out how thinking of putting the world into those boxes, if that's going to help me or not. But that seems to be some of what's shaking out when I look at what's the difference between the left and the right. Because you definitely can't go, well, one side's done great atrocities and the other side's shitting rainbows and taking care of people. They've both done good things. They've both done horrible things. So,
well, that's the thing, though, is that people, feel like their side, whatever they've done, has been is justified. Like they didn't do anything wrong because they were the way that they see it. They were fighting against an enemy that's trying to hurt them in some way, and so you'll never get. Each side is not going to say, well, hey, we've done some bad things, and we need to rethink the way that we're kind of living our life. It's never going to be that. It's always going to be, we've got to fight because they're trying to take away our life and livelihood.
I understand now why Jordan Peterson takes such a strong stand on all the identity politics. Because it's like, this is the tool of the gulag, of the mass murderous state. This is, and then people laughing with it. Are you saying that talking about trans equality is going to lead us to genocide? It's like, well, it's the language of that gets you there.
Yeah.
Like someone asked him, that was another comeback. It's like, all right, well, let's say this trans woman here was your student, Mr. Peterson. What would you call her? He's like, she?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, but you've been anti. I'm like, no, I'm anti the law. I'm gonna, if you want me, I'll call whatever you want. Don't start throwing people in jail over it. It's not
right.
You know.
Yeah, that's a big difference. When saying that I can be thrown in jail for not using the right word, that's ridiculous.
Yeah. So so that's the.
I'll call you what you want, but just don't.
Yeah.
Just don't put me in jail because I said something different. Yeah. And that's the thing is it's like saying, well, it's like telling someone, hey, if you get on this road right here, this is going to take you across the whole United States. And they're like, what do you mean? It's just, this road just goes up the hill. It's just the narrow, or I guess, what's the term I'm looking for? The myopic kind of the nearsighted perspective of what a lot of people have is that they just don't see the big picture and say, look, you've inputted a destination or a path to this destination, even though you can't see where you're going, so to speak, right now. If you continue down this path, that's where you're going to end up. It doesn't mean that right now that you're doing those things, but if you continue down this path, that's where you're going to end up.
I usually talk about the political spectrum more like a horseshoe, where the left and the right at the extremes, they fold in on each other, and they're closer than than the people in the middle. I think of a very tall horseshoe where the extremes are up real close to each other and they're really far away from the people in the middle. Yeah. I'll keep working on that shape because I keep trying to figure out how to balance or how to talk about. I guess it really does come down to transcending the party structure or the all my eggs in one basket, and that each idea there's different ones, like, are you an authoritarian, or there's this 4-way grid. And I found that helpful in terms of going, okay, do I generally think people will do the right thing if given the choice, or that there needs to be a lot of laws forcing them to be good, and, those different matrices. So I keep trying to, you obviously know my not wanting to just be thrown in the middle.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of the right way to say I don't belong on one side. Without,
I think your reluctance to be in the middle is to feel like you're not passionate about what you believe in. I always look at agnostic as actually and I got in a fight with my philosophy teacher one time about this. He said, you got to pick sides, you got to fight. I'm like, well, actually, to me, the way to learn and know more about the situation is actually to kind of be a neutral kind of observer, is not to pick a side, is to be able to get, bring in as much information from both sides to be able to kind of understand both point of views and be able to, to make your own educated decision about how you feel about things, which may be a mixture of both. And so to me, like, the only real way to be able to get there is through this agnostic kind of point of view, is that, not picking a side, but saying, hey, I want to learn. And I guess what agnostic means is without knowledge, or without
Gnostic?
specific, without specific knowledge, I think is what agnostic means. And I think that's,
I like the idea if it's without blinding knowledge.
Okay.
The impression, and I just made that up based on what you set up, but the idea of prejudicial knowledge.
Right.
Where you only see, you the conclusion already exists in your head, and you're only going to see the evidence that you want to see.
It's confirmation bias.
Yeah. This reminds me of a conversation I had with my wife about showing the kids, exposing them to different religions. The idea that you could take a kid to like a Baptist church for a month.
Yeah.
And then, all the different, Zen Buddhist temple, just show them everything, and that they'll get the experience. And I'm like, well, that's the actual experience of that is so much more than the sum of its parts that you could sit down amongst them for 4 Sundays in a row and experience. It's like, well, what's it like to be married? It's like, all right, well, go hook up with a bunch of guys, and then you'll know what it's like to be married. It's like, it's really hard to dabble. And so that's the part I'm talking about with agnostic, where how do you really get the flavor for it without going all in? Some things you can, some things you can't do. The Jordan Peterson, if I might invoke him again, was talking about.
You need that button, man. I'm not a Nazi.
I'm not a Nazi. There's some games you can't play unless you go all in.
Yeah, but sometimes you don't necessarily need to play the game to understand how it works. And I think that's, the idea of tourism, meaning, approaching things from an agnostic point of view is, get enough information so that you kind of get an idea of how it works. And if it's something you respond to and you're like, hey, I really identify with that, what I've learned so far, I'm going to go down kind of deeper and learn more about it. But just to just pick something because of, what's around you or what your parents chose or what your community is like, and just choose it because of that without fully understanding it, I think is also dangerous. So I think the idea of agnostic is kind of being able to have an open mind and see things without prejudice and try to then make a decision whether or not you want to pursue it.
Yeah. I'm trying to, let's see, is there a way to remove party from the line? For example, if you take like the spectrum, trying to figure out where I'm at. If you take something like wearing a mask for COVID,
mm-hmm.
that clearly has taken a political stance. If you say, well, if you've done a post in the last 2 months telling people they need to wear a mask to save lives, I know you lean left.
Yeah.
And if you made a post saying it's placebo or I shouldn't be forced,
it's a freedom choice,
freedom of choice or whatever, I know you lean right.
Yeah.
Which is part of why I think this goes towards just the trying to influence the outcome of the election, and people are like, I got science on my side, so you need to vote this way. But like, you can't, if you go issue by issue, you can't. What's it mean to be left or right? You got to be specific in the issue, like education. That's just the most generic catch-all blanket for education. Mm-hmm. What does that mean? It'll take something like, okay, vouchers or school choice. People should be able to choose what school they go to. That's, I think, fine enough an idea that you could actually put that on the political spectrum. I can certainly identify where I think the left stands on that and where I think the right stands on that. Is it because it follows along with any real substantive essence of what it means to be the left or the right, or it's just that the political structures as they live in? For example, a lot of money comes from school unions, and school unions don't necessarily want that. So is that why it's a left versus right issue? Or I'm just trying to look. This comes from, let me take a step back. This comes from the idea where I want to say I'm not one circle on the line. I'm a static haze. I'm a million issues, and some of them are on the left and some of them are on the right, and I'm not clearly in one spot. But if I take any one of my given issues, how do I know if it's left or right?
Well, I think that's the problem, is that humans see the world in as a duality issue, where there's got to be a black and white kind of thing there.
Yeah.
And I say here's my challenge to that idea is in what effect does having parties help us make decisions? because if we got rid of party altogether, I think the default would just be what's fair for the majority. I guess that's where that comes from, is that the majority rules, that, hey, the majority of people that live here feel that this is what they want.
Yeah.
And do we need a party to make that decision?
As much as that sounds like democracy, I want to say I understand why we have a republic, and that just simply having a 51% vote, we're back to the majority really unfairly taking advantage.
Majority kind of thing.
So you got to have the representative thing where now it's not a nameless bunch of people voting a certain way. You actually have a face to the tyranny, and then that's supposed to dissuade the tyranny.
Right.
That's a great idea. I heard is how much horrific stuff can happen in a big nameless group of people without a leader, where you can just say, hey, it's a shit happens. I don't know.
Well, I'm not suggesting that we don't have a leader. Yeah. But I mean, I think the idea of polarizing these our government is not necessarily helping us. I think that
I agree.
It's, again, just putting us into this polarizing duality of us against them kind of thing.
My understanding for the main benefit of party is, compromise. You got to have compromise, because even if, even in the Democrat wing or the Republican wing, there's still 30 or 40 splinter groups inside of that with their own thing. And if you coalesce into one big power block and you all back each other's play, then your power position increases. So if I was to guess why the political structure goes into party so much, it's because then they say, okay, I'll get your back for this, you get my back for this, and together we'll...
I mean, that's the way the military works. You don't get separated into Republican and Democrat. You get separated. You're Americans. You're united front against a common enemy, and that somehow that works. But then people think, well, maybe that structure is tyrannical. It's definitely a hierarchy, and I don't necessarily see anything wrong with that as long as it's not tyrannical. You know?
Well, it's up to the people who run the party to the people who support the party through their votes.
Mm-hmm.
They have to stay diligent, and they have to keep their house clean. And they can't just go, okay, well, if you got an R next to your name, I'm going to vote for you. It's my job in the primary system, at the very least, to get involved and make sure the right R is bubbling up to the top for the general and stuff. And if the wrong R is there, maybe I got to suck it up and vote for a D or abstain or something like that. But the idea, it only really works if the people who are responsible for the party take their responsibility serious and actually put the right people they want in charge of the party, and don't let it take care of itself.
So let me ask you this: what is the benefit of having the two-party system? How does that ultimately improve our government?
I don't know that I would choose it. I know the reason why it's got a gravity that situates itself out there, because Ross Perot kind of showed it in the only presidential election where one president was only elected for one term. If you create a third, it's going to be more like one of the other two, and they're basically splintering the other two, guaranteeing the other side will win.
Yeah.
So I've done a lot of. I also bought a big textbook, the only textbook I ever bought for fun, on how the Whig Party turned into the Republican Party, and what the political climate was to actually switch out what the two main political parties were. And again, it's back to slavery, that basically you had to you have to have a catalyst so big that enough of the people say, I don't care who you are. The Whigs and the Democrats broke off from their parties and formed a new thing. And like the first time Lincoln ran for president, there was a Democrat vice president, and Lincoln tried to be the vice president. And it's like, this can't be, people can't just see this as the new variant of the Whig Party. This has to be a whole new thing. And so the idea that we need a catalyst issue, which could ultimately lead to civil war, it needs to be something that big where people go, okay, I will actually vote for this group over my party, and I won't care if the other party wins. As long as I'm voting, let me use a real party. If I'm a Republican and a new party starts made up of Democrats and Republicans, I have to be so willing to vote for that new party that I don't care if the Democrats win. I'm going to not vote Republican. I'm going to vote my conscience and vote for this third party.
Mm-hmm.
Knowing that I could Ross Perot it and end up just splintering the votes. So that everyone's going to be terrified of voting for that third party unless there's an issue. And since we don't really talk about a lot of issues in any real depth, we don't get that sense anymore of, okay, this group stands so much for something that I have to vote for it on conscience. Which I think is another reason why we don't go into specifics. Do you like equality? Yeah. I like equality. Cool, vote for us. Like, okay, well, what's that mean? You don't like equality of ideas, per se. Right. You're definitely not for all equality. Well, no, but just the good things you like about equality. Vote for me. And all your wildest dreams will come true. So I think that's how we end up with the two-party system that we have now is we would have to risk contributing to the victory of the other side to vote for a third party. And we're moving farther and farther from ever considering that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a tough one, man. I don't know. And I don't think things are going to change until it becomes too painful or impractical to continue with the system we have, which I don't know if we're there yet. I think it's still got a lot of either we're gonna have a civil war come November, or we're just gonna be complacent and
see that's what I'm doing personally is looking at the world and looking at issues and going, okay, have things changed in the last few years in a way that I can't abide?
Since Trump's been president?
Yeah. Has he made rulings? And obviously, every time the party switches, there's things that come and go. And obviously, environmental laws will tighten or loosen. And there's 40 different categories like that where things that people campaign on are going to get more attention, and things that they campaigned against will get less attention. Not talking about that stuff. Like I think about there's the big hubbub about child sex trafficking. And like I just read this report, there's a 15-year-old girl who went missing a month or two ago, and I saw the posters up around, and I saw this post, and there's nothing to corroborate any of the story, but basically this lady who says she's her mom, and I've got no reason to not believe it, is a Facebook account from a human person. It's like, she's my daughter. No one cares for her. The government's not doing anything. This group found her in this crack house where her 50-year-old boyfriend got her hooked on drugs. They broke her out. No one would keep her. She just wanted to go back to her boyfriend in the crack house, and the hospital wouldn't hold her. They shifted her to this other hospital, And then she
she
just walked out the door. They wouldn't let the mother go see her because that would get her agitated. And then she just walked out the door. And now she's back at the crack den, and she's like, well, why should we even go get her? Because then the cops are going to take her and this and that. And I'm looking at things like that. What are the opportunities I have to make a difference? And what are the needs? What does society need from me? And try to move beyond the definitely the party paradigm, probably the right-left paradigm. And if I can just distill everything down to, all right, is the system more good as it is, or does it need more change? Obviously, if that's what the system is. And I have a family member who's going through something similar with mental issues and drug addiction, and she just gets let out on the street. And no one will hold her against her will because she's a drug addict. And it's like, well, damn it.
Yeah, it's interesting that we put so much weight on the federal, presidential elections, which, for the most part don't affect your life as much as your local government. And people tend to forget about, your elections for the House and your local government, that those directly affect your life. And those are the ones I think we should be putting most of our attention on, are those local events that having people that represent your community in the way that you feel is appropriate in volunteering, and I think you're kind of bearing the two ideas of supporting your community and doing what's right in your community, and kind of correlating to that to how you participate in our civic duties and in making choices on elections and things like that. So
it's the idea that voting is not the limits of my ability to contribute to society.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's not the most important thing I can do.
Decision. Yeah,
it's. And it's very easy for me in California, especially at the federal level, to say that my vote super doesn't matter in California. But
it's going to be Democratic.
Even if I did live in a swing state, the idea that I voted for my side, I unleashed them to go take care of the world. I've done my responsibility. I can go take a break for the next 4 years. I did my 1 day of work, my 45 minutes of work every 4 years there.
Yeah.
And I talked a lot of shit on social media leading up to it, so I really made the world a better place. Yeah. I made a huge impact.
I'm an activist, damn it.
Yeah. That's basically it, is figuring out how to transcend the fake promise that thinking of the world along party lines is a good thing that leads to the best outcomes.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, again, I think it's a distraction from what's probably most effective. I think what's most effective is acting locally and participating in your community, be it volunteering, be it, doing things like this, that, we're trying to help bring consciousness and maybe even education to people that as much as we can. And I think that has more impact on our lives than it would be on spending tons of time caring about whether Trump or Biden gets to become president.
Yeah. I mean, you should think about it, care about it, but as some small percentage of the rest of the things that you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Because, people, the goddamn anti-fascists who are like, we're stopping the fascism that's rolling across the country. It's like, do you know what that means?
Do you understand that word?
Yeah. It's like Benito Mussolini and his wife got beaten to death by the people, by the Italians at the end of the war because of the horrible things that he unleashed on the people.
Yeah.
It's like fascism. You can't just throw that word around. We're not living through fascism right now.
Yeah, no. Yeah. Again, it's I feel like it's this tribalism. People want to. I think there's a kind of a perfect storm of all the things that are going on, and people feel like they don't have a way to express themselves, or maybe they don't spend the time to educate themselves, and they just want to feel like they're doing something to make a change, and they've joined a group that's they feel that either they identify with or their peers identify with, and they don't even understand what they're supporting.
Part of it's the algorithm, social media, and the algorithm decides, if we wanted to make money off of this, if we got 1 million views, we could make like $1,000 if we monetized it properly.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all about picking your side and finding your base and touching on exactly what people already want to hear. And if you're trying to make money off the words, you're enticed to jump in at that level. And it's like the book I wrote on freeing yourself from the negative effects of social media. That ain't a hot button topic. And no one's out there hungering for that. So I keep getting attracted to self-empowerment, and there ain't no market for that.
No.
So that's a huge part of the problem.
And that's the thing, that's the thing I was saying before, is that people are, human beings do not like to do things that are uncomfortable, and, spending the time, even getting my kids to read now, anything that takes effort, humans, if they don't have to do it, will not do. They'll do everything they can to avoid it. And social media feeds right into that. It's super easy to manipulate that whole situation. It's just, and it's profitable, which is, they're like, okay, tell me the downside to this. We can make money, and we've made it super easy for people to participate in generating this income.
Yeah. And then the general audience, it's just, they get their answers handed to them, and they don't really have to acclimate everything through or really own the contradictions and all these things. If you just slice it up fine enough, you can live a life of contradictions if you just don't acknowledge them all at the same time.
Right. Especially when you live in an echo chamber and it just, everyone's, praising each other for having that same thought.
Yeah. All right. So here's the flip side to that problem.
All right.
We're sitting here, we're acting like we're cool, that we got our shit together, and that everyone else is a bunch of assholes. I also am not comfortable with this tone either, because I learned long ago, I learned in high school that I have a very easy tendency to overestimate the wonderment of my knowledge and the proper way I see the world. So,
well, every human has that, I think, right?
Yeah.
We all want to believe we're right. Yeah.
Part of it, the part that makes it the easiest is knowing that we don't actually have an audience, that we're recording this for ourselves, and that maybe 4 of our friends will listen to this. So,
we're educating ourselves right now.
Educating ourselves, which is the point of these dangerous conversations.
Exactly.
I do have a police officer friend. We're talking about the celebrities we gotta get.
Oh yeah,
He's a sheriff, I believe, and something we said earlier. We were talking about training and money for training, and I'm like, because I heard a quote at some point. It's like, hairdressers have to go through more training than police officers do. But
crazy, right?
But the flip side to that is, you come out of the police academy and you work in the office for 2 years. And then you go out for 2 years as someone sitting in a car next to someone else, just
More
watching
on-the-job
for 2
training kind of
years.
stuff.
Yeah. So it's not fair at all to say, to suggest that cops go to police academy for 8 weeks, are given a gun and go clean up the streets, rookie.
Yeah.
Because hairdressers do actually kind of, I think they get scissors put in their hands and so go cut hair now, as opposed to, you're sitting in the office for 2 years watching the receipts go by. You're assigned to court duty, and then 2 years later you get to sit in the room and watch someone cut hair for 2 years. So That's the part I'd like to get is the, more of the balance and, God damn it. I'm not going to run, if someone's shooting, I'm not going to run in that direction. So I don't, all these people you want to say, get rid of the police. It's like, fine, you go keep everyone safe. Like, oh,
right.
well, no, that's not what I'm saying.
Yeah. Well, who are you going to call if someone breaks into your house? You know?
Yeah. So is there room for opportunity and all the other stuff, that I was saying before that the people are protesting for, that I think they're just trying to affect the election. I'm not saying those things aren't important or that they're not conversations we should be having. That I think the extreme measures people are taking where they're like, I want to bring attention to this. I don't necessarily, I've got a grievance. I don't necessarily have any specifics. I definitely don't have a specific solution, but we need to be talking about this. I think that's great and important. Yeah,
I think right now it's, and I think you kind of hit the nail on the head, is that people are if there's any kind of race involved in any interaction between citizens and police, it immediately becomes racial before any other facts are known.
Yeah.
And I think that's the problem, is that we're jumping to conclusions and we're kind of calling someone guilty before we even understand anything about the whole story, and because that's human nature. That's the knee-jerk reaction to something you see there. Like, okay, well, there's a difference in race. Well, it's got to be racially motivated, and that again, that's again the problem. I think is we need to take a step back and start not immediately jumping to conclusion. Am I saying that because I have a white perspective? Who knows? Maybe.
It should be a conversation we have where someone who doesn't have the white perspective says why that is or isn't acceptable, and what the changes should be.
Yeah.
And I think it's this when I was joking about fascism. It's like we turned the things that are happening today into the biggest, most important issues of our lifetime, and get everyone so worked up that the sky is falling, that they gotta go in there and vote against fascism or something, and everyone's being distracted from the good work they could be doing now. It's like, oh, well, I could be helping with mental care in my city. But that's not as sexy as standing against fascism.
Right.
God damn it, it's fascism. Quick.
Yeah.
To the internet.
Yeah.
And that's the real crime, if there is one, is talking so big that it's not real anymore.
What's the name of that Megadeth album? Fear sells, but who's buying?
Peace sells, but who's buying?
Peace sells. Yeah. That's the thing. It's, you might have an idea about something that's really important, but if it doesn't, if you don't get any takers, it doesn't really matter,
Yeah. And then your passion doesn't really matter. It's like, well, I really believe strongly in these ideas. Like, well, no fucks are given for how much you believe, especially if you're 22 and have no other swagger to say why we should listen to you.
Yeah.
Other than your passion.
And I think the mean average of our what's the maturity level of our society seems to be like a teenager. They're like, I don't want to have to work hard to do, anything in life. I just want to I want to react to what my gut says and not think about any of the choices I've made. I'm just going to react because that's what seems comfortable,
And I think of it kind of along those lines, but maybe I have a hard time of saying we're all lazy, which it's hard to argue against that. But the people who are marketing for political parties absolutely know what they're doing when they pit us not just against each other, but like this is the most important deciding moment in the history of humanity, the most epic David and Goliath with, if the election this November goes the wrong way, it's the end of humanity kind of. Yeah. They know what they're doing.
Absolutely.
And short term, it may get more people out voting, but long term, we've all focused on something that should only take 45 minutes of research and driving out to the poll place. But we put all our eggs in that basket, and there's nothing left over for the actual good that we were meant to do as humans.
Yeah.
And that's what I think is that, they've just got the storytellers, the people who understand human psychology so well, manipulating the shit out of us and convincing us that this is the most important part we can be playing, is to be partisan hacks and bullies and then vote. And that's the unfortunate part. And then if I go out and try to preach that message, no one's looking for that. That's not a hot button search.
Yeah.
But that's okay. As long as I know I'm awesome.
I think it's just putting it out there. I think that we're trying to do, I think by asking these questions of ourselves and putting it out there, that hopefully someone else might stop and ask that question. If we get to one person, then maybe they tell a friend or something like that. I think that's how you make change, is by
and even if we don't get to anybody and it's just you and I who are getting the goodness out of it, that's good enough for me.
That's a benefit too. Yeah, absolutely.
So cool. That's all I got.
That's all you got, man?
Yep. Should we drive up to 925 Gilman one more time?
Sure, man. We'll have a show up there. We'll have a dangerous conversation.
Boy, wouldn't it be fun to play shows?
Right? Actually play music, go see live music. That would be.
Yeah, that was dead years ago. COVID didn't kill it.
Yeah, it's true. It was dead long ago.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
But I'm not bitter.
No, I am, but it's okay.
I actually am bitter. It's true. All right. Bitter man.
Yay. Bitter man.
Now that we've... oh, man. We should write a song called Shut Up and Die. I don't know. See, I subverted your expectations.
Good job.
All right, this is the Dangerous Conversations
I'm a me
podcast. I'm a me.
We're both I'm a me's.
Yes. All right, everyone's going to go out and do better.
Do better, people.
Now. All right, bye.
Coolio.
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 Bye.